The entire royal city was shrouded in darkness. The night hung like an iron curtain, pressing down on every breath. The wind carried with it the scent of sand and blood as it swept through the empty streets, whispering softly, as though mourning the calamity that was about to come. Kale Desoria stood before the palace window, his distant gaze fixed on the horizon. The fires rising from the city walls and the distant echoes of war drums seemed to proclaim, without words, the massacre soon to unfold. The once glorious kingdom of Grinhart was now being torn apart by unseen forces. He took a deep breath, trying to banish the fear and unease in his heart. The last traces of dusk barely illuminated his handsome, yet tense face. Cal's fingers brushed against the hilt of the sword at his waist, his father's gift. A family heirloom known as Flame Shadow, a blade set to burn with the same fire that flowed through his veins. "Your Highness, the situation is dire," came a low voice from behind, shattering Cal's silence. Kale turned to see a weary old soldier, clad in black armor, standing by the doorway. It was Ethiel Stir, his father's most loyal guard, once a legendary warrior of Grinhart, now aged and wounded, forced to retreat from the battlefield. "What happened, Ethiel?" Kale asked, his voice trembling despite his efforts to stay calm. "Our defenses have been breached," Ethiel said grimly. The armies of the Marcus Empire had broken through the eastern gates. The outer defenses of the royal palace are collapsing. Even the guards within the Great Hall have been assassinated. The situation is dire beyond measure. Cal's heart sank. It felt as if the world itself had crumbled around him. He could hardly believe that the kingdom he and his father had worked so hard to preserve could fall in a single night, like a sandcastle washed away by the tide. His father was a wise and cautious man, commanding the defense himself. How could everything go so wrong? They struck from within, Ethiel continued, his voice heavy. Most of the traitors were palace insiders, some even of your own blood. Kale froze. A chill ran through him. He knew that Emperor Carlton Hark of Marcus had long coveted Grinhart's lands and resources, but he never imagined betrayal would come from within. Was it Uncle Marius? Cal's voice was barely above a whisper. Ethiel lowered his head in silence before giving a slow, painful nod. Lord Marius has been in league with Carlton for months. He turned the royal guards and officers against us. Even your brother, Prince Devanay, was part of the rebellion. Cal's pulse thundered in his ears. His own kin, his own brother, had betrayed their bloodline. The enormity of it made his breath catch. "And my father?" Kale asked, desperate. "Where is he?" "I am sorry, my prince," Ethiel said softly. His voice faltered. "Your father has fallen." The words struck like a thunderclap. Cal's knees buckled, and he sank onto the bed. The world around him blurred, and Ethiel's voice echoed endlessly in his mind. "Your father has fallen. This can't be," Kale whispered, burying his face in his hands. His father's death meant the end of everything, the end of the kingdom, the end of his world. But grief had no place here. If he stayed, he would die. If he fled, there might still be a chance. "Ethiel," he said suddenly, rising to his feet, his eyes blazing with resolve. "Take me away from here. I won't let my kingdom die like this." Ethiel stared at the young prince, emotion flickering in his eyes, then gave a solemn nod. "Yes, your highness, I've already prepared an escape route." But before they could move, hurried footsteps and shouts echoed from the corridor. Ethiel's face hardened. "They've found us." Cal's heartbeat quickened. There was no time left. "Go," Ethiel roared. "I'll hold them off." Kale drew a deep breath, gripping the hilt of Flame Shadow. His eyes burned with grim determination. He knew that from this moment on, he was no longer the Prince of Grinhart, but a fugitive, a survivor, a soul forged by vengeance. Under Ethiel's cover, Kale and a handful of loyal followers fled the palace. That night marked the end of one life and the beginning of another, a long, merciless road toward revenge. As they crossed the burning city, Kale turned for one last look at the palace, once radiant, now consumed by flames. The firelight flickered like the dance of restless spirits, mourning the fall of a dynasty. He swore then and there, no matter the cost, he would reclaim everything. His kingdom, his father's honor, and the lost glory of Grinhart. The way Salanthe wind across the wasteland cuts like knives. Kale trudged through the darkness, his cloak torn and bloodied. The ground beneath him was charred black, the trees standing like hollow corpses beneath a pale moon. His face, illuminated by silver light, was young, yet already lined with exhaustion. He had no idea how long he had been walking. Each step carried him farther from his fallen homeland. Ethiel walked beside him, silent, clutching a broken sword still stained with blood, the only weapon left from their desperate escape. They had once been 10, now only 2 remained. "Your Highness," Ethiel murmured, "we must move quickly. Marcus soldiers will not rest until you're dead. They've already sealed the eastern trade routes." Kale lifted his head, defiance flickering in his eyes. "I will not die here, Ethiel. Not before my vengeance is done." The old knight said nothing. He only sighed, a weary, blood-soaked breath swallowed by the wind. By dawn, a dim light crept across the horizon as they reached a desolate valley. Once a battlefield, now a graveyard for beasts and restless spirits. Kale leaned against a boulder to rest, and suddenly, a strange pulse of energy rippled through the air. It was ancient, wordless, a calling or warning. Did you feel that? Kale frowned. Ithiel tightened his grip on the broken sword. Something's wrong here. We should leave. But Kale was already moving, drawn towards the source. The call tugged at his very soul. At the valley's end stood a half-buried stone temple, etched with faint blue runes that glimmered in the shadows. As Kale pushed open the heavy door, a deep, echoing voice filled the air. None may enter save those who bear the mark. Whosoever steps within shall bind their soul to fate. A burst of light flared, forcing Kale back. Flame shadow vibrated in his grasp. Then, from the light, a woman emerged. She wore a dark crimson cloak, her golden hair catching the faint breeze. Her eyes were deep as starlight, cold, weary, yet endlessly calm. For a heartbeat, Kale saw in her the reflection of fire and destiny intertwined. Who dares trespass within the Hall of Hark? She demanded, her voice clear and sharp as steel. Kale froze. Hark, you mean now you're from the Marcus royal line? Her brow furrowed. A staff of pure energy appeared in her hands, its aura rippling through the air. So you do know something. Speak your name, or perish. Kale de Soria, he said, his tone low and unyielding, Prince of Grand Heart. Silence fell. The woman's eyes flickered with surprise before she slowly lowered her staff. Grand Heart, they said you were dead. I'm not, Kale replied coldly, and I live for one reason, to take back everything. The woman turned towards the temple's depths. If you truly carry Grand Heart's blood, the temple will answer you. Come. Inside, flickering torches cast shadows across walls etched with runes of a forgotten age. The woman stopped before an ancient altar and faced him. My name is Arlia Hark, she said quietly, once a royal mage of Marcus, and niece to the tyrant Carlton Hark. Kale's eyes narrowed. You're his blood? Yes, she said evenly, but I renounced that blood long ago. I will not serve a mad king. With a wave of her hand, crimson sigils flared to life across the altar, glowing like living flames. Kale de Soria, the power within you is no ordinary force. It is the remnant of an ancient covenant, the blood flame pact, bound to the fate of this land. If you wish to reclaim your kingdom, you must accept it. You must fuse your soul with the blood flame. Kale frowned. And what would happen if I did? Arlia's voice darkened. You will gain unimaginable power, but it comes at a price. The flame feeds on the soul. If your will falters, it will consume you. Kale fell silent. In his mind, he saw his father's final moments, the burning palace, the betrayal, the blood. I accept, he said finally, his voice steady as iron. Arlia's gaze softened. Touched with sorrow, she raised her hand, summoning a dark red flame that hovered in her palm. Then from this moment on, your fate should be bound to the blood flame. Kale knelt before the altar and pressed his hand to the runic circle. The fire roared to life, engulfing the entire chamber. Pain tore through him like lightning. His blood boiled. His soul screamed. Every nerve in his body burned with searing agony. Hold on, Arlia's voice echoed through the inferno. It's your bloodline awakening. Kale's eyes snapped open, glowing crimson. His sword, Flame Shadow, resonated with him. Its blade now etched with a new mark, a phoenix rising from blood and fire. The blaze subsided. Silence filled the hall. Arlia stepped forward, her gaze solemn. From this day forth, she said softly, you are no longer a prince in exile. You are the heir of the blood flame. Kale lifted his head. Determination burned in his eyes like an eternal fire. With this power, he vowed, I will end the rule of Marcus. A faint smile touched Arlia's lips, a mixture of ice and prophecy. Then may the blood flame light your path and consume your heart. Outside, the night deepened. The wind howled through the valley, and deep within the ancient temple, a new flame began to burn. The storm howled through the night, stirring dust and dead leaves across the valley. Hidden beneath the cliffs, a faint fire flickered inside an abandoned mine. Kale sat beside the campfire, eyes shut tight. The blood flame pact still churned violently within him. The fire had never died. It lurked in his veins, ready to consume his sanity at any moment. Behind him, Arlia stood in silence, tracing glowing sigils through the air. A soft blue aura enveloped Kel's body, suppressing the raging energy within. Your soul is still resisting, she whispered. If you can't master the blood flame completely, it will devour you when it next awakens. Kel's eyes snapped open. His pupils still gleamed with a faint crimson glow. His voice was low, restrained, yet pulsing with power. I can feel it breathing, yearning for battle. Arlia frowned. The blood flame is a double-edged sword. It will never serve you. It only tests whether you're worthy of it. Kale gave no reply. He rose slowly and walked towards the mouth of the cave. Beyond, the dawn's first light tinged the horizon red, glinting on his battle-worn face. Iser stepped forward solemnly. Your Highness, our supplies are nearly gone. I scouted eastward. There's a small village. We could rest there, escape pursuit for a while. We can't linger, Kale said coldly. Carlton won't stop hunting me. As long as I live, he'll send assassins, armies, even sorcerers, to finish the job. Arlia tilted her head. Then how will you survive, Kale, alone, against an entire empire? Kale turned, his gaze resolute. Not alone. I'll find those who still dare to resist the tyrant. 3 days later, on the eastern border, the ruins of Greyhold Fortress loomed ahead, a shattered bastion that once guarded the frontier between Grandheart and Marcus. Now, it was said to shelter the Blackwind Rebellion, branded heretics and outlaws by the crown. As night fell, campfires flickered in the ruins. Iser murmured, "Your Highness, I don't trust them. Thieves, mercenaries, deserters, they fight for gold, not ideals." Kel's gaze was steady. Those the Empire despises most are often the ones who crave change the most. They entered the fortress. In the firelight sat a broad-shouldered man clad in battered armor, a deep scar slashing across his face. Around him, dozens of armed rebels watched warily. "Strangers," the man rasped, "you tread on Blackwind soil. Prove your worth, or die." Kale did not flinch. Slowly, he drew his blade, Shadow Flame. Its edge shimmered with a red gleam. "I didn't come to threaten you," he said evenly. "I came to reclaim a kingdom." A murmur swept through the rebels. The scarred man sneered. "A kingdom? I've heard that fairy tale before. Who are you to make such claims?" Before the words faded, a surge of crimson fire erupted around Kale. The blood flame blazed to life, painting the ruins in infernal light. The rebels recoiled in awe and fear. Even the scarred man's eyes widened. "By the gods, that's the blood flame," Kale said, his voice like thunder. "The mark of Grandheart's royal blood." Silence fell, broken only by the crackling of fire. The man rose slowly, respect and hesitation flickering in his eyes. "You truly are a descendant of Grandheart?" Kale sheathed his sword. "My name is Kale de Soria, the betrayed prince, and I seek one thing only: alliances." After a pause, the man knelt. "I am Rand Valak, former captain of Grandheart's Knights. On the night of the coup, I was forced to retreat and branded a traitor. If you truly are the prince, I owe you an oath." He bowed deeply. "The Blackwind Rebellion will fight for you." Arlia smiled faintly. "It seems fate has finally begun to answer you." Kale looked towards the dark horizon. "Fate doesn't decide. We do." Days later, the Blackwind camp stirred with renewed life. But word soon arrived. Carlton had sent assassins, the faceless ones. No target of theirs had ever survived. That night, the moon was a silver blade in the sky. Kale sat inside his tent, staring at the reflection of fire in his sword. Iser entered quietly. "Your Highness, they're here." Kale rose without a word. The wind outside fell still. Then, shadows descended, silent and lethal. By order of the Marcus King, royal blood must die. Fire erupted. Kel's blade flared crimson as he met the assassins head-on. Each strike left burning trails in the air, death cloaked in flames. Arlia raised her staff, weaving blue wards around the camp. "Careful, they're using summoning seals." One assassin lunged from above. Kale spun, unleashing a sweeping arc of blood flame. The man's scream was swallowed by fire. When it ended, only scorched earth remained. Kale stood in the ashes, trembling, his breath ragged. The blood flame still burned on his skin, its pain excruciating. Arlia placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've pushed yourself too far. No mortal can wield that power for long." Kale closed his eyes, forcing the fire back down. "If this is the price of vengeance," he whispered, "then I'll pay with my soul." At dawn, the banner of Greyhold rose again, black and red, the phoenix reborn. Arlia watched it flutter in the wind. "You have soldiers now, allies, but don't forget, Kale, the true enemy has yet to appear." Kale's gaze turned east, toward the Marcus Empire. He'll learn soon enough. The blood of Grandheart still burns. The final war, the plains of judgment. Kale stood atop the ridge, his black cloak whipping in the wind. Below, two armies clashed, the crimson banners of Marcus against the tattered standards of rebellion. Behind him, thousands of warriors gathered. Exiles, knights, sorcerers, thieves, bound by one cause. Arlia approached, her silver cloak glinting in the light. "Kale," she said gravely, "scouts report Carlton himself leads the army, 30,000 strong, and to legions of dark knights." Kale drew a deep breath, gripping his sword. "Then it ends today." The dawn's first light spilled across the battlefield. Horns blared, for freedom, for Grandheart. Kel's roar ignited the army as blood flame blazed upon his blade. The clash was cataclysmic. Steel met steel. Magic burst like thunder. Kale tore through the ranks, each swinging a crimson storm, but every surge of power consumed a part of his soul. Arlia's voice cried out from afar, "Kale, stop using it. You'll die. Without it, we lose," he shouted back, eyes blazing. Then the Darkwing Legion broke through. Death rode among them. Carlton himself appeared, mounted on a black dragon, armor inscribed with cursed runes. "Kale of Grandheart," the tyrant roared. "Do you think you can rebuild what has already rotted away?" "I rebuild not a throne," Kale answered, "but hope." The dragon's roar split the skies. Kale leapt, meeting Carlton in midair. Fire and shadow clashed, swords against sorcery. The blood flame cleaved scales, but dark magic pierced Kale's chest. Blood poured down the blade, the sword absorbed it, and exploded with radiant fire. Grandheart's blood will not be defiled again. Kale hurled himself forward, unleashing all his life into one final strike. A blazing swordlight splits the heavens, consuming dragons and tyrants alike. The battlefield fell silent. Kale knelt amid the ruins, burned and broken, his sword shattered. Arlia rushed to him, tears glistening. "Kale, you did it. Carlton is dead. We've won." He smiled faintly. "Victory here belongs to everyone." The blood flame flickered one last time, and went out. And thus, the era of the Blood Flame King began. In the years that followed, Grandheart rose anew. The scars of war healed under Kel's reign. At his coronation, the bells rang across the sky. With the blood flame, he declared, "We reclaim faith and honor." The people knelt, "Long live the king! Long live Kale, the blood flame king!" But Cal's gaze saw beyond the cheers, to the orphans, the ruins, the broken. Grandheart shall no longer conquer, he proclaimed. We will rebuild with justice. The blood flame will no longer burn in hatred, but light the path ahead. That night, he stood alone on the palace terrace. The broken sword still gleamed faintly in his hand. "Father, mother, I've done it," he whispered. Arlie joined him, smiling softly. "The blood flame will never die, Kale. It lives in you, and in this land." He turned to her, a quiet smile on his lips. "Perhaps one day, they'll forget the war, but not the flames. Its color is hope." The wind carried the firelight into the night sky. Years later, Barth sang of him across the world. He bled upon the plains of judgment, burned away the shadow of tyranny. Not God, not demon A but man. He rebuilt the world, and gave it hope. Under his rules, Grandheart knew peace, magic, and steel coexisted once more. And in every dawn that followed, the color of fire still shone, the light of the blood flame, heralding a new age.